You're now sitting at the Wavetable.
Welcome to episode 11 of the Wavetable, everyone. I can't believe it's almost been 3 months for the podcast already. It just feels like yesterday that I started it. And I'm glad that you're all coming on this journey with me and kind of trying to discover some new music. And yeah, I'm just really excited to have Skrybe on today. So yeah, hello,
Hey.
Skrybe. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. I've just been really well lately, just like focused on the music production and the podcast and, just all that good stuff. So, what have you been up to, dude?
Oh, with the whole COVID-19 thing going on at the minute and stage 4 lockdowns, there's not really much you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, just lots of production, kind of taking the opportunity to just do as much as you can.
Yeah.
Is really, really good. But it gets a bit boring, but
But speaking of doing
I'm
as
assuming
much,
it's the same on your end as well, hey?
yeah, I mean, it gets a bit boring, but I feel like as soon as COVID kind of started, I'd recently finished uni, so I didn't have that much time to do like just hobby stuff while I was at uni, and I'm glad that I've just kind of extended that discipline that I learned in uni to just go balls to the wall on music production stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of going balls to the wall, you started this 30-day challenge thing, right?
Yeah. So you've done it as well, and Hamish, way back in, I don't remember what episode it was, but a little while ago now, he did it as well. And basically it's a thing that I learnt about where you give yourself a month or 30 days and you make a new idea or a new track every day for those 30 days. It's interesting because the idea of it is that you keep writing ideas and you keep going through these processes. And the idea is that as you go on, you get more and more sick of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You start doing weirder and weirder stuff, which is supposed to give out really interesting ideas. And then at the end, you finish the ideas that you like. I learned this from an artist named Crywolf, who's really cool. I did an official remix for him a little while ago, and we had a Skype call or a Zoom call. It was really interesting just, being able to talk about processes and things. And that's where I learned it from. And that's how he usually writes his albums and things. He'll do the 30 days and an idea can be as much as humming into your phone for 5 seconds or making half a track. It's really interesting just going through it, and even the smallest ideas can have the greatest potential, which is really cool. So it was supposed to be a lot more of us, but Hamish and I, and eventually yourself, we did the 30 tracks in 30 days, and it's actually been really interesting. I kind of want to finish 25 of the 30 though.
Same, dude.
Yeah. How'd you find it?
Dude, honestly, I'm in the same boat. When I first heard Lovecraftian Horrors by Code P, I was so inspired by the fact that he had such a huge body of work that all good quality and a similar sound. And I think that doing a 30-day challenge like this, it kind of gives you the bones for doing something like that, because towards the end you do want to get experimental, but really just producing that much in the same time frame, a lot of the stuff you'll do is quite similar, but you learn to really refine it to a very high level. It
kind of solidifies the sound that you've got. You kind of find yourself going back to specific things, which is really interesting from a compositional standpoint, because that's all part of building a signature sound and becoming your own unique producer. If you have your own identity within like a day's work for 30 days. It's really interesting just to see how that just plays out, I guess.
And how did you go about finding your signature sound, like the whole cinematic thing?
It was a lot of work. So I've been producing for 7 years about, which has been good. I've enjoyed it and I've written a lot of interesting stuff. A lot of it was just a mixture of things that I liked. So I liked dubstep, I liked melodic dubstep, I liked trap, I liked film music, I liked, all the crazy sound design from like films like Transformers and Godzilla and stuff like that. And just all that stuff kind of meshed together was kind of what I wanted to go for. Was definitely really interesting trying to force more of the cinematic kind of idea in there. But I did study music at uni. And so a lot of the compositional stuff really interested me. And that's where a lot of film music and stuff appealed to me a lot. Because they have just a particular expression and like movement that a lot of electronic music doesn't have.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to mix both of those things together. Which I feel like I'm doing all right, but I find myself as I go on moving myself more and more and more towards like cinematic type stuff and orchestral music, which is really, really interesting. Because it used to be very Seven Lions-esque melodic dubstep, and now it's a whole load of stuff just mangled together. That's kind of what building your sound is. You're always making music with influences. Take Space Prince, for example, last episode, I think it was 10, he loves Skrillex. That's goals for him. And there's been so many times where he's like tried to take influence from Skrillex and take influence from the people that he really, really likes. And, talking about that, when he spoke about that Infect track that he really, really liked, Rumble.
Yeah.
And he wanted to kind of like recreate that, that's all influenced from something. And that's all going to help him build his own kind of sound and his own identity, I guess, which is really interesting. And that's kind of how I've come about it.
Yeah.
Just people you love, mangle them together. That's basically you.
Yeah, I really like the whole incorporating cinematic vibes and stuff, because in my opinion, when a whole track is like entirely synthesized, it's like kind of gets old. It's really nice to have some organic instruments in there. And I guess you're a trumpet player, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So being a trumpet player, that's like a really dynamic, expressive instrument. So I guess the whole organic elements thing kind of came more naturally to you than it might to other producers.
A little bit. Yeah. I feel like having the whole understanding of just composition and stuff like that, like studying it at school, was really important as well. It kind of just opened my eyes a bit more, because a lot of people really, a lot of people that do music don't have that kind of training.
Yeah.
And I guess the whole influence of having to study and like analyze that kind of music really kind of opens your eyes to how you can implement that stuff elsewhere or in your own stuff. And film music and just orchestral music really appealed to me, I guess. Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it a bit.
Have you ever been? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go on. No, go on.
Have you ever been approached to have your music in any films or anything? Because I think it'd fit pretty well.
Not as of a couple of like ads, like advertisements and stuff. I've had a couple of commission works for like books, like audio books.
Oh, sick.
Which has been interesting. I made a couple of Nero and like Tron inspired tracks.
Oh, dope.
for a book. which is really interesting because, you know, the last thing you'd think about having music for is a book.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was really interesting. It was really cool. Yeah, it kind of makes you think about, particularly in like that book kind of sense, like how the music's going to work in an audiobook setting.
Yeah.
You know, you've just got this dude just like reading for a while, being like, you know, and he did this, blah, 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 blah. And then like at the end, it's just, he wanted like some dubstep or like, you know, epic cinematic music. And it's just, you know, goes from soft words to blah.
Did they give you like a preview of the parts of the book that you were scoring, or was it the other way around?
No. So they kind of told me the story of the book, and I can't really go into it, but they told me the story of the book and they were like, this is how it's going to work. It's based in the future. It's eerily similar to the whole like COVID-19 thing going down at the minute, except the book's been written for a while now. And they were just like, yeah, we need some stuff that's kind of futuristic, but not super heavy. So like Nero was cool and like Tron was cool. So, you know, do something like that.
Sick.
So it was pretty much like full creative freedom apart from that. It was nice.
Did that commission work come to you through your Soundbetter profile?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. It's been kind of slow because of the whole COVID-19 thing. A lot of jobs were coming through and then people would just start cancelling. So like, nah, COVID-19 is coming and we can't do this. It's like, yep, no, that's fine. I understand. I would be the same. But, you know, it's good having worked with people. The kind of jobs you get there are kind of very broad.
Yeah, just
I
like
work with
general
a lot of different people.
All aspects of audio stuff, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are lots of people who you can literally find pretty well any kind of music, like job on there of any kind of style. So, I would argue that I'm one of the only dubsteppy people on there. And mixing, you know, electronic and cinematic music together was kind of my selling point.
Yeah.
So that's appealed to a few people, and that's why a lot of people have come to me. They've been like, hey, you know, saw this is really cool, heard your stuff, it's really cool. I totally understand what you're going for. Let's work together. And it's been like, yeah, cool. So I've worked with a dude who's written books. I've remixed like tracks for rappers. I'm working with a heavy metal band at the minute on like a heavy metal electronic kind of like rhythm meld, which has been really interesting. And just the kind of people that you get are so all over the joint. It's really cool. It kind of helps with a lot of learning as well. So I'm learning a lot of, you know, so for example, for the heavy metal rhythm track, there's a lot of the sound design that I do is based around the sounds of like orchestra and like cinematic music. So a lot of my synthetic stuff is built around that. But it was weird having to kind of build everything around a totally different timbre and style.
Yeah.
So it just involved a lot of different processing and a lot of different just editing and wavetables and stuff like that using Serum and whatever, which is really cool.
It's really interesting trying to incorporate metal into electronic music. Because I've been trying to do it for a while, and when I first started, it was just like, okay, here's a metal song and here's a dubstep song, and it just kind of like switches between the two. Whereas, like,
yeah,
you kind of have
in
to
a lot
learn
of cases,
to mix metal in a dubstep way. You can't just mix it the traditional way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in a lot of cases, it's almost easier just doing from like heavy metal one time, like from the start, and then go to like a build, just and then dubstep, and then heavy metal, and then a build, and then dubstep. The hard bit is definitely putting them together.
Yeah.
Especially with like drums, for example. So, you know, heavy metal usually uses like acoustic drums of some sort. And then you've got dubstep with these really like punchy and big, like overly processed digital drums. And so it's an interesting kind of like melding of stuff, just just pushing it together and hoping it sticks. But it's a fun experience, and it's definitely a really good way to learn stuff.
Yeah, I feel
especially because you want to fit like what's the word? You want to send off everything at a particular standard because you get like rated and stuff. So people rate you out of 5, and then they in a comment they tell you like what you did that was good or bad. And everyone can see that. Everyone who's looking at you can see that. So that's really interesting. So you want to get it at like a really nice standard. Otherwise, they could give you 4 stars instead of 5, and that's
Don't give your Uber drivers bad ratings, people.
If they're bad, you give them 4. If they're good, you give them 5.
Yeah.
Only when they, rob you at knife point or whatever do you give them a 1 star.
Oh man. So dude, I want to give you a fucking huge congrats on releasing on Never Say Die, man. Like with JOOL.
Thank you, man.
That's fucking insane, bro.
It's a funny story how that came up, actually.
Oh yeah, tell us about it.
So, it's kind of changed my philosophy on the whole like collabing with artists kind of thing. I was at a 21st or a 22nd birthday party with all the boys and all the music people, and we were just getting absolutely like slaughtered. And I remember just on a whim, just drunk messaging JOOL, and I said what I would do to collab with you.
Oh my god!
And he, I just said that, and I was like, oh my god, that was so embarrassing. Why did I say that? And he sent back, yeah, man, send me some stuff. Like, let me hear what you've got. And I sent him all my heavy stuff, and he was like, yeah, dude, let's collab. And I don't know, it was just kind of one of those things where, everyone's kind of human, I guess. They read those things, and a lot of the time they're just like, yeah, man, send me stuff. They're a lot less scary than they actually look to be, They're a lot less intimidating than you would think. And yeah, that was how it started, and that was probably the best way to like start a collab like that as well. Just because like I was always talking about wanting to collab with him because I really like his stuff. His style is really cool. Because he adds a lot of, his kind of culture and like where he's from within his music. So he's Egyptian. You get a lot of like Egyptian vibes from quite a lot of his music. And so it was really cool just, being able to meld both of our styles together. But yeah, I was always saying that I wanted to collab with him and then just drunk messaging him on a whim. It's just one of those things where like the worst someone can say is no.
Yeah.
But even then you might as well ask if you feel like you're good enough. Because the following is arguably less important.
True.
I feel like if I sent that message and he would have been the same, where he is now or where he will be in, a year, 2 years.
I think, like while you said it was embarrassing, I think it's actually entirely appropriate because like it's kind of on that level where you're like talking at a friend level, whereas a lot of people will be like, hey JOOL, here's a private SoundCloud link, would you like to collab on this track with me please, like so that comes off as really like, people always think let's be professional about it and stuff like that, but they're just like you're me, they're not that far like far of a reach from you. You literally just message them and they can see it. So instead of being, super, hey, I really like your stuff, please like listen to this and maybe we can collab on it, just be like, oi, what's going on, mate? Here you go. Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, like the people that are at a professional level in this industry, it's not like the people that are on LinkedIn. So regardless of how big someone is, you don't want to go up to them with like a business plan or something and be like, yo, I think this would be really good for your engagement. And, I don't know.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I guess there was like, with everything, because music's a business, there's always going to be some kind of business incentive. There's always going to be the thought of, where's this track going to go?
Yeah.
Will collabing with this person be useful to a degree? But, at the top of it, there's always, does this track that this guy sent me sound cool?
Yeah, exactly.
It's why I always tell people that, ask to collab, or whenever I mention collabs, it's always like, if you send me something cool, I'll work on it. If you're big and you send me something really bad, I'm not going to collab with you on it, because then it's still bad. So yeah.
I think do you have like a manager or anything?
No.
I think
all self done. Yeah.
I think like the main time that this changes is once managers kind of come into play, because I've heard this story about like Mr. Bill and someone else and Virtual Riot collabing. And like, obviously Virtual Riot fucking loved the tune. He, went through the process of collaborating on it, but then his manager wouldn't let Mr. Bill and the other guy put Virtual Riot's name on it for the release.
Yeah. Why not?
I don't, I think the line was literally, like, I'm paraphrasing, but it literally was pretty much, you can't collab with people that are lower than you or something like that. So yeah, that was like pretty disgusting.
Man, that's
yeah, fucking weird one. But
that's so like, you wouldn't want to release it after that.
Yeah, I think
like,
Mr. Bill was pretty disheartened.
Yeah, and Mr. Bill's like huge in his own right.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, I would argue that Mr. Bill and Virtual Riot, to a degree, are like on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I think the manager was probably only seeing the numbers or something.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. Mr. Bill's reputation is nuts.
Oh, bro.
Yeah.
He always talks about like how revealing his secrets was perhaps a bad idea because it allows people to sound similar to him. But at the same time, the fact that he put out all those videos is like what made him such a god, like among all the producers,
Yeah. And I mean, I can't say I've heard anyone do it as good as him.
Yeah, no way. No way.
Yeah. There's, there's starting something and then there's being just, the best at it. And he's kind of both. Yeah. He's good.
So what was the collab process like with JOOL? Because I'm assuming you didn't sit down in the same room.
No. It's pretty funny, actually. So English is JOOL's second language. So there was a lot of kind of language barriers, which had its ups and downs, I must admit. It was really interesting being like, hey man, here's the idea that I've got. So I sent him like 3 ideas before we started. The first idea I sent it to him, and I think he was, when a lot of people collab, or when I get collabs from people and stuff, and I'm not into it, I'll be like, hey man, this is, kind of nice, but it's not really me, blah, blah, blah. I'll kind of not beat around the bush, but I'll say no kind of lightly.
Yeah.
JOOL's kind of language barrier kind of makes it a bit hard for him to just go into detail like that. So he went, no, I don't like it. And then he would send a cat pic. Like he'd send just some like distorted cat picture.
What?
and it's like, okay. You read, I don't like it, and you get disheartened a bit. Then you see the cat picture and you're like, all right. that's weird. And then you go, okay, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'll send you something else later. And he went, okay, another cat pic. Just, I don't know. I feel like it's to kind of just keep that positivity there.
Yeah.
That's my thought. Or he's just some filthy meme guy. I mean, either or really at this point. But yeah, it was really interesting just like sending him stuff and then having him respond with like 4 or 5 words and then a cat picture.
That's amazing.
And it was probably my first like real collab. Like I'd done collaborative stuff with a few people before, but this was probably like my main like first main like collaborative project that was like an original.
Yeah.
That, you know, I kind of needed to I had that thought that I needed to kind of perform at a particular level because I was, you know, collaborating with someone that I really looked up to. It's just weird because it was really streamlined as well. So the second I sent him an idea that he liked, he was like, yes, send this to me. And so I sent the stems and then he would send me then he would do his bit, send me the stems, and then I would do my bit, send him the stems, and we would just like go back and forth. There was no real discussion about the track.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I know that with people that I've collabed at the minute, I've kind of tried to make it that I don't have things to discuss. I'll just send them stuff. So I'm doing a collab with Drea, and when he sent me his stems, he sent me a huge paragraph of stuff. He was just like, I've done X, Y, Z. I didn't even read it. I just downloaded the stems and just started working. I don't know. It kind of, I feel like it makes you look at it differently if you read what if they say, I've done this.
Yeah.
You know, the most I said to Hamish the first time I sent him the stems was, this is what I've got. The bits that are empty, fill out. And there you go.
I guess it's kind of like how when you ask for feedback, obviously whilst music is subjective, the most objective you can get is to have fresh ears. And then when you explain what you've changed to someone, it kind of justifies things and like makes it less fresh to them. So maybe they lose a bit of that objectiveness. So yeah, I guess not reading like changes and stuff really helps you to hear it for what it is just on the first listen. And yeah,
that's what I do. I'll listen to it and then I'll make my changes.
Yeah,
just it's, you know, you could go, hey, you know, I've heard all this stuff or I've seen your changes, like change this, this, and this. But there's just something about it being able to like take those things yourself and just make the changes yourself or the fixes however you want. I don't know. It's an easier way to work around things for me.
Yeah.
Because then it's telling the person, hey, fix X, Y, Z, and then waiting a couple of days for them to fix that. And then you get the stems again. And then there might be more things you want them to fix when you could just be like, all right, cool. Let's just get to work.
Yeah.
That's what made JOOL's thing really interesting because, you know, we kind of just went through it. I did like the intro first, like breakdown and build up, and then he did the first drop and the second build up, and then I did the second drop, and then I did part of the second breakdown, and the second build up, but he did a part of the second breakdown and build up as well, and then I did the third drop, and it was just really interesting because we barely changed anything that we had done. We kind of just took things, and if we made changes, they were little kind of like flavor bits.
Yeah.
You know, it was just to spice things up a tiny bit. So in the first breakdown, I had like a melody going through, and he made little edits to like give little bits like trills.
Sick.
Which is really interesting. Just little tiny things like that, you know. Otherwise, if you make too many changes, the identity of the other artist kind of disappears as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you want to kind of, it's like a happy middle ground. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the collabs I've started have kind of failed because people will get caught up like changing the small things, and it's like, Like I'll add something and then the other guy's like, oh, okay, I like this, but it's not exactly how I would do it. So I'm just going to delete it and replace it with the way I would do it instead.
Yep.
It's like, as soon as
Yeah.
you do that, I'm just like, dude, I don't want to work on this track anymore. You're just deleting my shit.
Yep. Yeah, it's if you start making changes to the other person's thing like too much, if you just listen to it and it sounds fine, like don't make changes. I would only make changes if it's terrible.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't make the track sound good, or it just, you know, lessens the whole overall quality. If you can make like tiny edits to make it better, then yeah, sure. But usually just leave it as is.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, that's their identity being like laid out on that track and you're just taking it and replacing it with your own thing. Yeah, it ruins the point of a collaboration. You might as well work by yourself.
I find that like the most that I'll do to other people's sounds is just kind of post-processing stuff.
Yeah, same.
I don't really like to mess with the actual bass sound design at all.
Mm.
And I think that just laying out the structure of the track really fast in a collab is a good way to get it started. So kind of the way that you guys did it was just like doing a section or two, sending it off, and then repeating.
Yeah. We didn't exactly think of... So when we made the track, there was no intention of having like a heavy track or a light track. It was just, you know, I'd send an idea that JOOL eventually liked. It was like, okay, cool. And then he worked on it. And then I worked on it. There was no real discussion of what we wanted in the track or like what we wanted the track to turn out to be.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be like a heavy dubstep track. And that was really cool. But if we'd thought about it too much, we probably wouldn't have gotten there.
Yeah.
Going back to the Drea collab, you know, when we first hung out to work on that track, we had like full intention of making it sound a specific way. We wanted it to, you know, work a specific way, and it crashed and burned. It just didn't work. And then we just went, all right, let's just go into it with no intention whatsoever, just writing shit for the sake of writing shit. And yeah, it's come along really well at the minute, which is really good. I feel like having less plans allows each artist, particularly if they're quite varied, to just write what works.
Yeah. I think I definitely agree with that. Every time I've went into a collab with a plan, like this is just going to be like the hardest fucking hitting dubstep tune that exists. It's just like, it's failed like instantly. Cause like people just see that like, it's kind of that thing where you need to spend a certain amount of time to get a product to a certain level, but people aren't seeing what it could be. They're only seeing what it is currently.
I think it comes down to normal life as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, with just like writing on your own, if you just with everything like that, if you kind of have a plan of like what you want to write, personally, if I have a plan of what I want to write, it just doesn't work. So I'm releasing different stuff left, right, and center. It's easier for me to just write stuff that kind of fits within my sound from like a cinematic electronic standpoint than it is to work within a genre.
Yeah.
And I find that should be the way that everyone looks at it. Because it would make so much more varied music, which is really cool. Just having an artist that you love. I mean, Virtual Riot's a great example. Just, it's music that you love. It's Virtual Riot, but it's in so many different styles.
Yeah.
You know, he's done like complextro, dubstep, trap, future bass, and you know it's him.
Those are like, man, you've just kind of made me realize something, dude. Like, I've always I felt restricted to making like, or not restricted. I felt like I should make just one genre. Whereas I like to make a lot of different stuff. And now that you bring up the Virtual Riot example, I'm just really realizing that like most of my all-time favorite artists just have such a huge variety in the genres that they create.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
sick.
it makes it a lot more fun over time as well. So things like writer's block, for example, come a lot less often when you're just producing for the sake of producing. So it's really interesting kind of making those tunes and then just, putting them in a stockpile and then releasing them in like a particular way. So I mean, like I have a bunch of future bass and like heavy dubstep and stuff. I could release that all together and it would just be a weird, like mangled lot of stuff. But you know how Virtual Riot does it? He does like a future bass EP or like a dubstep EP or like a classic kind of Virtual Riot sounding EP. Stuff like that, which is really cool. But it also helps with, as I was saying, writer's block in the sense of you could be writing heavy dubstep tunes and then it just won't work. Then you go, okay, well, I'm going to write something else. And then you just vibe future bass for some reason. And so you start writing future bass and then you'll finish a track and then you'll go back to like another future bass track and it doesn't work. And then you're like, all right, I'll do some house. And then you work on some house. And it's a productivity thing as well as it is just a writing because you like it kind of thing. I find it helps a lot.
Very often I get like ear fatigue just from listening to all the distorted, screechy basses and shit. So yeah, I absolutely agree with it being a productivity thing because you can either A, stop producing when you get that ear fatigue, or B, produce something that's more mellow and friendly to your ears.
Yeah. Even just, just producing for the sake of producing. Like you don't even have to be writing a tune. You could just be doing sound design or, make a website or, do
music
stuff that helps your brand, stuff like that. Yeah. I don't know. I've just been enjoying the production at the minute. So I just keep producing, especially in a kind of state of the way the world is at the minute with all these lockdowns and things. Kind of just really interesting, being able to sit down for hours on hours on hours and just produce, which is arguably the longest and hardest part.
Yeah. I heard that Virtual Riot actually does some generative, like relaxing music, but I haven't checked it out yet. But
like garage and stuff he does a lot of, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think he has like a different alias though as well. Like,
I have no idea. It'd be cool if he did, but
I'm trying to remember.
I couldn't tell you.
If anyone wants to know, he definitely says it on his Ask Disciple most recent episode. I just can't remember off the top of my head. So I wanted to talk about your Barely Alive remix as well, because I thought that was like, I really welcomed the fresh take on that because obviously Wompum is a fucking like staple, but you really like brought it to 2020 levels of production and sound design. Yeah, would you like to just kind of take us through the process of making that and highlight some of your favorite things that you changed or added to that track?
Yeah, okay. So the Wompum remix is kind of another funny story. Vital Mode, he does a lot of like melodic dubstep and like color bass and stuff. And I went over to him and I went over to him on Discord because you can't really see people, but I went over to him and went, hey, you should do a melodic rhythm remix of Wompum. And he went, yeah, okay. And then he didn't do it. And so I was like, all right, stuff him. I'm going to do it myself. And here we are. So it was, it was kind of funny. But the whole idea was, because I've had this idea for a while, just kind of taking really, really heavy tunes and then making them a lot more melodic, but still giving that like heavy vibe.
Yeah.
Because you know a lot of, what's it called? Like a lot of like heavy tracks and a lot of melodic tracks. They're very different to each other. One's kind of lush, where the other one's kind of just like distorted and heavy.
Yeah.
The idea with this one was to kind of meld both of them together. I like the idea of having some really high energy kind of melodic stuff, because if it keeps the same energy as like the heavy dubstep, it arguably could sit in the same space as melodic stuff and sit in the same space as heavy stuff. So there's kind of that in a mix, it works a bit more universally, which I feel like I did a pretty decent job at. And a lot of it was really interesting. Just the main sound, that rising, just like womp, was that with a resonator on it. So I literally just resampled the sound and put a resonator on it. And with the Ableton resonator, you can pick specific notes for it to resonate at. So you just put it at like a really interesting or intricate chord, and then play it through the resonator, and it plays it in a really like kind of melodic and interesting kind of sound.
Yeah.
Which was interesting because I'd never done that before, and I heard someone yelling about it a little while ago. And so I did it, and it worked really well. And the whole like knowing music theory and stuff like that really allowed me to kind of experiment with that sound a bit more, just because you pick like a root note for the resonator, and then you pick how many semitones each other resonance is at. So you can't pick the notes. You have to pick one, and then like how many semitones each thing is, like each other resonant frequency is, which is kind of silly. You should just be able to have notes for each resonant frequency, but whatever. You just pick the intervals for them, and then get a really nice and interesting, intricate chord, put it through, and a lot of what it does is it keeps a lot of the aggressiveness of the original sound.
Yeah.
But it just makes it a bit more, I don't know, appealing is not the right word. Just, I don't know, it's a different vibe, I guess.
It definitely made it more 2020.
Yeah, it definitely fits with the whole 2020 kind of vibe, which is really cool because that stuff's becoming quite a lot more popular at the minute. It was a fun little experiment. It was good being able to, fiddle with that a bit. And that was one of my 30 days tracks as well.
Oh, really? God damn.
Yeah. And yeah, just being able to kind of, because the first drop was kind of intended of being, reminiscent of the original Wompum, and the second drop was kind of just to try and flex my production muscles a bit. Which was, because it's a remix comp, you got to try and appeal to a bunch of people above everyone else, which, it's a competitive, it's almost like you could almost make like an e-sport out of it, which would be interesting. But, yeah, I don't know. I thought of the vibe and I just went with it. There was no real plan when I was making it. So I can talk about it now and be like, this is what my intention is looking at it now. But when I went into it, I was like, this will be a cool idea. And I just did it.
You just reminded me of how many assessments I did. And then I wrote like the pre-assessment thing after doing the assessment.
Yeah. I remember at uni, because we had to do a lot of like music writing assignments. And there was always the write about the assessment, write about your process. It was like everyone usually wants to say, oh, I did this because it sounds cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, that should be a good enough reason. But they went, no, you have to be more detailed than that. It's like, okay, I chose this because, and you waffle on for a bit. And yeah, it sounds cool. And that, you could take that back to Wompum. Like, that's literally the reason why I did it, because I thought it would sound cool, and it did.
Yeah, man, experimentation at its finest.
Yeah, it's fun,
Yeah, I really
push those boundaries.
I really reckon you did a solid one on that track, because it's just like got a new life, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few good ones out there, like, and all of them are really different styles, which is really interesting as well. So it'll be interesting to see who wins. Yeah.
I'm wondering when that information will become available, because like how long are they going to have to spend sifting through all the remixes?
I don't know. Basically everyone that listens to Disciple is a producer themselves.
Yeah.
To a degree. So I mean, who was saying that? Someone was saying that Eliminates One had over 500 submissions or something like that.
Christ.
Something stupid like that. And it's like, and then every other track probably has at least half of that.
Yeah.
And so it's just every artist looking through that many remixes, and they've all got their own things to do, and they're all very busy. Like, I'm just interested in seeing how the winners get picked out, because I'm not really talking about mine, but with the other ones, like with the other remix tracks, you can see kind of definitive winners.
Right.
But in a lot of remix comp scenarios, they pick the one that they think is just going to perform the best.
Yeah.
Which can be a bit not cool.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely been in my fair share of remix comps, and they've picked a winner because it's like a commercial track, or because that person has 200,000 monthly listeners on Spotify or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's,
if
because
you're
they're a business, they're running a business as well. So,
like if you're picking a remix winner just because they've already got reach, then instead just pick the actual best remix and then sign the person that has reach.
Yeah. I don't know. I've thought about it, and like it makes sense either way. You could use your own push to release a really good remix, or you could use your own push plus the push of someone else who has a lot of numbers to just push it as well.
Yeah.
And as a business, you're making money from this. Or the idea is to a degree trying to make money from this. So they're gonna pick with a few things in mind, which I think will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see kind of where everything sits. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely would not like to be in that position, because it may be easy to say stuff from this standpoint, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that I'm sure I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got a lot on their plate. Good on them for getting to that point, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God, man, I can't imagine the amount of attention that the competition would have brought to already such a huge label.
Yeah, it would be heaps.
So on the Lawrence episode, I think it was like episode 6 or 7, we discussed how the masked menace of Skrybe came to be. I'd like to delve deeper and kind of just get your thoughts from that time when you were coming up with the idea of the whole mask and just all that.
Okay. So Lawrence did mention this bit way back when. This is a few years ago now. Him, myself, and a couple of other mates, we started this kind of social media entrepreneurial kind of like visual audio kind of like business called the Eighth Wonder Collective. And the idea was to kind of mix a bunch of different like art forms and turn it into this one like cool like service kind of thing. So there was, fashion, photography, design, music, a bunch of other stuff, which was cool. But that kind of went under just because we all had our own kind of commitments to do, and we all had our own kind of ambitions to follow. So everything was kind of just left there. And Lawrence mentioned this as well. We had kind of just character that was made kind of for comic relief called Cecil. And he was a dude wearing a gold gas mask. He was kind of just supposed to be some stupid kind of little character. And funnily enough, I was the one that was meant to be that kind of character. And anyway, everything kind of stopped, and I was DJing for a bit under Skrybe, because when I first started Skrybe, I used to do like Melbourne Bounce and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But it was one of those things where it was like try and like get a part of that, like the Melbourne kind of cake, because that's going to be the most realistic thing being in Melbourne. I was talking to some guy who was running one of the nightclubs, and he was like, yeah, dude, your stuff's really good, but you need something that's just like identifiable to yourself. Like you need an identity. I was like, the music should be able to speak for itself, etc., etc. And he was like, no, you need like a visual brand, like an identity. And I was like, yeah, but I'm kind of going for this. And he was like, no, you need something that's like a character. And I went, all right, cool. So I just started like scrolling through my phone looking for like pictures and things, and a picture of me as Cecil kind of rocked up. And he went, that. I was like, what do you mean? He went, do that. And I went, all right, cool, I'll do that. And yeah, that's how it started.
That's sick.
And the intention wasn't really to go any further with it, but playing shows in that old gas mask was terrible. Terrible. You couldn't see, breathe, or hear. Which, funnily enough, you need all three of those to be able to perform well. Yeah, so I ended up sending a few emails and getting a custom one done, which is really cool. Now I can see, breathe, hear, and when I yell at people, they can hear me as well.
And you've got like multiple masks now, right?
Hang on. Wait, I'm going to grab it.
Cool.
The mask itself kind of has 3 designs, but it's only one mask.
Oh, okay.
So everything is magnetic. So I can kind of just, connect things.
Dude, that's fucking sick.
And so the idea was, because I write different styles of music, different like emotions and moods and things, the idea was to kind of have the mask represent that. So there was like this middle of the ground, like, high energy, but not like super heavy kind of thing. Then there was like, more melodic type stuff. So then there was, if it fits, come on. And there was that one. And then if you wanted like some really heavy stuff, there was...
Oh, the old teethy.
The piranha, yeah. You can tell I haven't touched this in a while. There we go. There's that one.
That's
and
fucking brutal.
All the stuff on it is customizable. So I can change the eyes, I can change this stuff here. All this bottom stuff comes off, which is really fun, really interesting. And so I can, fiddle with stuff based on the mood a lot of the time, which has some really good kind of implications, I guess.
It's really cool. I don't think I've seen anyone with like a transformable mask before.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lot of work, but the idea of it was for maximum practicality, which I feel like I managed. How does this go on again?
Do you want to give a shout out to the person that made it for you?
Yeah, so there's a company, or a dude rather, named Smirk Masks. His stuff's really cool, and I've been following his stuff for a while, and I wanted this custom mask done, and I thought, stuff it, I'm going to send him a message. I emailed him, and there was like a 9-month wait.
Jesus.
Like, that's how much work he had. He was like, yeah, so I can start in 9 months. And I went, all right, cool. Yep, 9 months. Cool. Send me an email when you're ready. And he went, yep, cool. So he sent me an email 9 months later, and we started going through plans. And funnily enough, that's actually the second design that came up, because the first design looked eerily like Void.
Mm.
The mask was like in one of its draft stages. It had like had its first mold, all this other stuff, and then Void came out with Void.
Fuck.
And I emailed him and I was like, hey, we're going to have to stop this and start again. Because this guy, who's kind of in the same realm as me, has done this. And it's just, everything will look like way too similar. And he went, yep, that's shit. Let's start again. And here we are with the whole gas mask thing.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. Ultimately, I feel like it was the better idea, the second design. So, you know.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to look like a copycat.
No. And it ended up being better having that mask. Because, I feel like it just fit the overall, like, personality and just aesthetic of Skrybe and the music that I do and stuff like that, which is really cool.
For sure. Like, the whole transformable thing, it definitely fits with your... how you release like different kinds of music.
And then like playing different, so, playing shows and stuff, it means that with my brand aesthetic, nothing's too heavy or nothing's too light.
Yeah. So,
if I have the teeth one, they go, oh, we want like a melodic set or your opening or something like that, I can change it to like the kind of the flat one without the gas mask. And that's meant to be like the melodic or chill out kind of variant. Just because I found that with the brand having like kind of a really dark brand, not dark so to say, but you can have like there's a lot of like darker kind of elements in my stuff, kind of like sad, moody type stuff. It's kind of weird having like this super like heavy kind of looking, style playing future bass or something. So it was really, really good being able to just take the heavy bit off, put the light bit on, and then it's a whole kind of new personality.
Yeah.
I guess, which is really cool. Really fun. Yeah.
You could also just like stick a marshmallow in the mouth.
Yeah. I'll send you a photo one day.
Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, man, because I'm even though there's this whole COVID situation, I'm sure you've got shit to do. So,
yeah, I can talk. That's fine. But yeah, no, it's been good talking with you. Actually,
I just wanted to ask one final question. And I brought this up on the Space Prince episode because I've seen pictures of you two playing together, and you look tall as fuck, dude. Like, I just got to ask, how tall are you?
6'7".
Holy shit!
Which it makes the whole brand even more like the whole like mask and get up even more like creepy.
Yeah,
because just imagine this like all black, just like wearing this kind of gas mask thing, just in like a like a really secluded area. Lawrence and I did a shoot once in an abandoned church. And just like, I was holding like a big piece of wood with like nails in it and stuff. It was really interesting. Just like, if you walked in there and saw that, like, what
you would have
happens?
just like, just say no and leave. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, just turn around and go. Yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely something interesting to add to that. Yeah. No, it was good talking to you.
Yeah, man. It was a pleasure having you on after having like literally every single Melbourne boy talk about you.
Yeah. It's been really humbling, it's been really like nice kind of just looking at or watching the episodes and then having everyone be like, Skrybe this, Skrybe that. And it's like, oh, they think about me? That's cute.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone, to Wavetable episode 11. As always, in the show notes, there'll be a link to Skrybe's SoundCloud and music, obviously, and all that good shit. And don't forget to join the Wavetable Facebook group where you can just discuss all things music production, podcast, and yeah, you'll just get notifications about when the new episodes go live. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me, Skrybe. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been good.